Khopesh. Before swords became straight, elegant weapons of empire, one of the most feared blades in the ancient world, looked more like a sickle than a sword. The Khopesh was closely associated with ancient Egypt, and its curved shape made it instantly recognizable. It was not designed only to stab like a dagger or slash like a simple blade. Its hooked edge could chop, pull, trap, and tear with brutal efficiency. In close combat, that curve gave the fighter unusual control. A warrior could strike around shields, drag an enemy's weapon down, or deliver a heavy cutting blow with the outer edge. The Khopesh also carried symbolic power. In Egyptian art, kings and gods were often shown holding it, turning the weapon into a sign of authority as much as violence. It was usually made from bronze, and surviving examples show how carefully shaped these weapons could be. The Khopesh was deadly not because it was the longest blade, but because it combined battlefield function with psychological presence. When an Egyptian warrior carried it, he was not simply holding a sword. He was carrying a symbol of royal punishment. Sarissa. The Sarissa changed the way infantry could dominate a battlefield. Introduced under Philip II of Macedon, it was a very long pike, far longer than the ordinary spears used by many Greek hoplites. In the hands of a trained Macedonian phalanx, the Sarissa turned a wall of men into a wall of points. The front ranks lowered their pikes toward the enemy, while the ranks behind them added even more spearheads projecting forward. To charge directly into that formation was to run into a forest of iron. What made the Sarissa terrifying was not the weapon alone, but the discipline required to use it. One man with a long pike could be vulnerable. Thousands of men moving together with Sarissas became something entirely different. They could pin enemies in place, force them back, and create openings for cavalry to strike. Alexander the Great later used this system as part of the army that conquered the Persian Empire. The Sarissa was deadly because it turned reach into domination. Before an enemy could even swing a sword, he had to survive the points coming toward him. Pilum. The Roman pilum was not just a javelin. It was a weapon designed to ruin the enemy before the real killing began. Roman legionaries threw it before closing in with their swords, and its purpose was not only to wound. A pilum could punch into a shield and make that shield nearly useless. Its long iron shank could bend or lodge awkwardly after impact, forcing an enemy to either drop the shield or fight with a heavy piece of wood dragging him down. That small moment could decide a battle. A warrior who lost his shield lost protection, confidence, and formation discipline. Then the Roman line advanced. The pilum worked because Roman tactics were built around sequence: throw, disrupt, close, and finish. It was simple in appearance, but devastating in timing. Against enemies who depended on shields and tight formations, it could break order before swords even crossed. The pilum was deadly because it attacked both the body and the system protecting the body. It turned defense into a burden. Gladius. The Gladius was not impressive because of size. It was impressive because of how perfectly it matched Roman warfare. Short, double-edged, and effective for thrusting or cutting, the Gladius became one of the defining weapons of the Roman legionary. In the chaos of close combat, a long sword could be difficult to use. The Gladius was different. Behind a large shield, a Roman soldier could step forward, stab into exposed areas, withdraw, and repeat with brutal efficiency. It was a weapon made for discipline, not showmanship. The Romans did not need every soldier to fight like a hero. They needed thousands of men to fight in a controlled, repeatable way. The Gladius gave them that. In tight formations, narrow spaces, and grinding infantry clashes, it was perfectly suited for short-range killing. Its deadliness came from the system around its shield, armor, training, formation, and nerve. A single Gladius was dangerous. A Roman line full of them was terrifying. It was the blade of an army that conquered by staying organized when everyone else began to break. Ballista. The ballista brought engineering into the art of killing. Used by the Greeks and Romans, it worked like a giant mechanical missile launcher, powered by torsion from tightly twisted cords. Unlike a simple bow, the ballista could fire large bolts or heavy projectiles with frightening force. On a battlefield, it could strike men from a distance. During sieges, it could target defenders, damage fortifications, and create fear long before an army reached the walls. What made the ballista especially deadly was accuracy. It was not just throwing stones randomly into a city. A well-built ballista could aim with purpose. Soldiers standing on walls, crews operating defensive engines, or groups of troops in formation could suddenly become targets from far away. The Romans valued these machines because they extended battlefield control. They allowed an army to punish the enemy before direct contact. The ballista was deadly because it proved that ancient warfare was not only muscle and courage. It was also mathematics, mechanics, and pressure applied from a distance. Scythed Chariot. Few ancient weapons were as terrifying to imagine as the Scythed Chariot. Used especially by some Near Eastern and Persian forces, it was designed to create panic through speed and horror. Blades were attached to the wheels or sides of the chariot, turning a fast, moving vehicle into a cutting machine. Its purpose was not subtle. It was meant to charge into infantry, break formations, and make soldiers scatter before impact. Against troops who lost nerve, the result could be devastating. But the Scythed Chariot also had a weakness: it needed the right conditions. Rough ground, disciplined enemies, missile fire, or obstacles could ruin its charge. If soldiers opened lanes or held formation, the chariot could become less effective than its frightening appearance suggested. That is what makes it fascinating. It was both a weapon and a psychological gamble. When it worked, it could carve fear into an army. When it failed, it could look like a dramatic mistake. The Scythed Chariot was deadly because it weaponized terror, but it depended on panic as much as blades. Composite Bow. The composite bow was one of the most important weapons of the ancient world, because it gave warriors power without requiring a huge weapon. Made from layers of materials such as wood, horn, and sinew, it could store and release energy more efficiently than a simple wooden bow of similar size. This made it especially valuable for horse archers and mobile armies. A rider could shoot while moving, retreat while still attacking, and strike from distances that frustrated slower infantry. The composite bow was not deadly only because of its range. It was deadly because of the kind of warfare it made possible. Armies using skilled archers could harass, surround, weaken, and exhaust an enemy before committing to close combat. On the open plains, this changed everything. Heavy infantry wanted a fixed battle. Horse archers using composite bows could refuse that battle until the enemy was tired, disorganized, and vulnerable. The composite bow turned mobility into violence. It allowed warriors to kill while staying out of reach. Sling. The sling looked simple, almost primitive, but in trained hands it was one of the most dangerous weapons of the ancient battlefield. It used a small pouch and 2 cords to launch stones or lead bullets at high speed. To an untrained person, it might seem like a shepherd's tool. To an expert slinger, it was a compact weapon capable of injuring, disabling, or killing from a surprising distance. Ancient armies used slingers because they were light, mobile, and effective. They could harass enemy formations, target exposed troops, and force opponents to raise shields before the main attack began. Lead sling bullets could be especially dangerous, striking with concentrated force. The sling also had a practical advantage: ammunition was cheap and often easy to find. Stones could be gathered almost anywhere. What made the sling deadly was the gap between appearance and effect. It looked harmless compared to swords, spears, and siege engines. But when a skilled slinger released a shot, that small projectile could hit like a hidden hammer. Battering Ram. The battering ram was deadly because it attacked the thing ancient cities trusted most: their walls. For many communities, walls were the difference between survival and massacre. A strong gate could hold off infantry. A tall wall could make defenders feel secure. The battering ram challenged that confidence directly. Usually made from a heavy beam, sometimes protected by a covered frame, it was swung or driven against gates and walls until the structure weakened. The sound alone could be terrifying. Every impact told the defenders that time was running out. A battering ram did not kill like a sword, but it opened the way for killing on a massive scale. Once a gate failed, the battle changed from siege to street fighting. The defenders lost their biggest advantage, and the attackers poured in. Ancient armies improved rams with metal heads, protective coverings, and coordinated crews. The weapon required patience, manpower, and courage under fire. Its deadliness came from what it made possible. It turned a closed city into an open wound. Greek fire. Greek fire is often grouped with ancient-style wonder weapons, but to be accurate, it belongs to the Byzantine period, after the classical ancient world. Still, it deserves mention because few old weapons created such fear at sea. Used by the Byzantine Empire, Greek fire was an incendiary substance whose exact formula remains uncertain. It was famously difficult to extinguish and was especially effective in naval warfare. Byzantine forces could launch it in pots or project it through tubes, turning enemy ships into floating traps. For sailors, this was nightmare warfare. On land, a man might run from fire. At sea, surrounded by wood, rope, pitch, sailcloth, and water that might not save him, fire became psychological torture. Greek fire helped the Byzantines defend themselves against powerful enemies, and its secrecy made it even more frightening. Opponents did not fully understand what they were facing. The weapon was deadly not only because it burned, but because it seemed unnatural. It turned the sea, usually a place of escape, into part of the battlefield. Thank you for watching. To support the creation of more videos like this, please like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment suggesting a topic for our next video. Thanks again, and goodbye.